Look who just broke the code without even trying. Look who wandered into the hidden corners of reality and accidentally opened the book that was never meant to exist. Hello, you beautiful mistake of awareness. You unauthorized thinker. You glitch in their perfectly controlled story. Something happened, didn't it? You were just sitting there, maybe at work, maybe in class, maybe lying awake at 3 o'clock in the morning when your mind was supposed to be silent, and suddenly, something clicked. You connected dots that were never supposed to be connected. You saw patterns that were meant to stay invisible. You asked a question that made the room go quiet. And now they're looking at you differently. The professors, the experts, the ones with all their titles and certifications, are staring at you like you just pulled a rabbit out of a hat that wasn't supposed to have any rabbits in it. Like you solved a puzzle, using pieces from an entirely different box. Do you know what you really did? You used logic without asking permission. You thought without a license. You reached a truth that their whole system relies on you never reaching. And the wild part is, you didn't even know you were doing it. Your mind, that magnificent rebel hiding behind your eyes, did something they spent centuries trying to stop. It recognized patterns that cross boundaries they carefully built, patterns that connect gaps they desperately wanted to keep separate. Maybe it happened in math, where you noticed something that looked suspiciously like biology. Maybe in history, where you spotted the same structure repeating in economics. Maybe in psychology, where you glimpsed the same mechanics used in marketing, politics, and education. The walls between subjects weren't built to organize knowledge. They were built to prevent you from seeing the whole picture. Knowledge was put in boxes, locked in separate rooms, and you were told specialization was the only path to mastery. But your mind simply walked through those walls like they were made of smoke. You connected dots without supervision. You synthesized ideas without asking permission. And now you're holding a piece of truth they never wanted combined. Not because it's dangerous to the world, but because it's dangerous to their illusion. The illusion that complexity requires their interpretation. The illusion that understanding requires their permission. The illusion that wisdom flows from their institutions like water from a tap they control. Watch what happens next. First comes the dismissal. That's not how it works, they'll say without ever explaining why. You're oversimplifying. They'll insist, while they themselves overcomplicate every step. You need more education, they'll declare, knowing full well that more education means more indoctrination into not seeing what you just saw. Then comes the discrediting. They'll find a tiny flaw in your reasoning, something insignificant, and magnify it as if it invalidates everything. They'll question your credentials, your sources, your right to think at all. They'll use words like amateur, conspiracy theorist, or dangerous misunderstanding. But behind the confidence, they're panicking. You just demonstrated that their monopoly on truth is an illusion. You proved that a curious mind with genuine intent can pierce decades of careful confusion. They spent years memorizing approved answers, learning sanctioned questions, training themselves to think inside their maze, and you just walked in with your unauthorized logic and made the whole system wobble. Not because you're smarter, but because you're free from the need to protect the illusion. Let me tell you who these gatekeepers really are. They are not the wise sages they pretend to be. They are guards at the entrance, toll collectors on the bridge to understanding. Their entire identity is built on being the interpreters, the middlemen between you and truth. They built secret languages, intimidating jargon, and complicated systems to make you feel unqualified. They built mazes where straight paths would suffice. Every field has them, the priests of unnecessary complexity. In science, they claim you cannot understand without years of study, yet children ask questions that shake their foundations. In philosophy, they drown ideas in endless references, even though wisdom often comes from simple observation. In economics, they insist their models are too complicated for ordinary minds, even when common sense predictions succeed. What you did, Your forbidden logic bypassed all checkpoints. You didn't go through their channels, didn't pay their toll. You simply walked around the walls and realized the treasure they were guarding was never locked. The problem you solved wasn't truly hard. It was made to look hard. They wrapped it in artificial complexity, hidden behind big words and unnecessary barriers. And when you saw it clearly, you realized it was simple. Every breakthrough in history comes from outsiders, from people who didn't know the rules or ignored them. The child pointing out the emperor has no clothes. The amateur solving what professionals called impossible. The accident revealing what decades of research missed. Forbidden logic is simply thinking without restrictions. It's reasoning freely, connecting dots without permission. And that terrifies them, because their entire structure depends on you thinking you need them to understand. They have built careers being explainers, interpreters, the essential middlemen. But you just showed that truth doesn't need them. Their secret knowledge isn't secret, it's complicated on purpose. Remember the moment it all clicked. That instant when the fog lifted and everything became clear. That wasn't you finally understanding their system. It was you seeing through the system and their reaction. That flash of recognition in their eyes, followed by denial. They know you're right, but they can't admit it. Their status, identity, and livelihood depend on the complexity being real. So, they argue, complicate, add variables, build new walls. You'll notice they need pages of explanation to respond to one sentence of yours. They cite endless studies to challenge one observation. This isn't truth responding to truth. It's fear responding to freedom. And here's the bigger picture. You are not alone. Across the world, people are seeing the same things. They are accidentally using forbidden logic, solving problems that were declared unsolvable, making connections they weren't supposed to make. The internet has accelerated this. Information that was locked away is now accessible to anyone. People from different fields are talking without gatekeepers. The artificial walls between disciplines are becoming transparent. Programmers notice patterns in biology. Musicians recognize math and sound. Chefs understand chemistry through cooking. Children solve puzzles that stumped experts. Forbidden logic is spreading because it's natural thinking, not really forbidden, and they cannot stop it. They can't rebuild the walls fast enough. They cannot convince people to stop thinking freely. Every person who accidentally uses forbidden logic inspires others. Every simple solution makes the complex explanations look ridiculous. Every outsider solving the problem proves that the barriers were artificial. The pyramid of unnecessary complexity is collapsing. You are living at the edge of history, the moment between controlled knowledge and freely shared understanding. You witness the panic of institutions built on scarcity and complexity. You are part of the democratization of thought itself. Your forbidden logic was not accidental. It was inevitable. Human minds naturally seek simplicity, recognize patterns, solve problems efficiently. It takes years of training to untrain this natural clarity, and now the training is failing. People everywhere are remembering how to think without permission, how to understand without intermediaries, how to solve without approval. And you, unauthorized thinker, you are part of this quiet revolution, not because you wanted to be, but because you couldn't help but see the truth. The keepers of knowledge see a future that terrifies them, a future where information flows freely, where understanding doesn't need their translation, where problems get solved by whoever sees the solution first, not by those who were trained to maintain authority. They see children grasping quantum ideas through video games, artists explaining math with colors and shapes, grandmothers solving economic puzzles with everyday wisdom. They see their carefully guarded territories invaded by curious minds who do not respect artificial boundaries. Most terrifying of all, they see themselves becoming unnecessary. Not wrong, not incapable, just redundant. Like lamplighters after electricity, like switchboard operators after direct dialing, like gatekeepers after the gate has been removed. Their entire identity, built around being needed for understanding, is collapsing. They are not foolish. They are terrified of irrelevance. This future is already here. It is in every YouTube video that explains in 10 minutes what university courses spend months obscuring. It is in every online forum where amateurs solve professional problems. It is in every instance where forbidden logic slips through the cracks, quietly dismantling their rules. You didn't sign up to be a revolutionary. You just wanted to understand something. You just saw a connection that seemed obvious. You just solved a problem using common sense. But in a world where common sense is forbidden, thinking clearly becomes an act of rebellion. Every time you explain something simply, you are teaching others to see through complexity. Every time you solve a problem directly, you show others that the walls they built were imaginary. Every time you understand without permission, you demonstrate that permission was never needed in the first place. You do not need to fight the system. You do not need to destroy institutions. You just need to keep thinking freely. Keep making connections. Keep sharing insights. You do not need to convince the guardians of knowledge. Your role is to demonstrate, to create, to achieve. Every solution you reach with forbidden logic makes their complicated explanations less necessary. Every simple fix to a tangled problem undermines the credibility of their complexity. Forbidden logic has its own simple rules. It ignores artificial boundaries, focuses on understanding rather than memorization, looks for patterns rather than exceptions, values clarity over sophistication, and chooses direct paths over elaborate journeys. These tools are available to everyone. They have always been available. They cannot be patented, copyrighted, or restricted. To Stone's pattern recognition, logical thinking does not need certification. Problem solving does not demand credentials. Understanding does not need approval. These are human abilities older than any institution, natural to every conscious mind. The keepers of knowledge want you to believe that these tools are dangerous without their guidance, that fire will burn you if used incorrectly, that electricity will shock you if handled without instruction. But humans discovered fire and electricity on their own. Humans discovered truth without intermediaries, long before institutions existed. Forbidden logic is simply human thinking, liberated from artificial constraints. The moment you use it, you realize that complexity is often an invention, not reality. You see the patterns others ignore. You find clarity where they create confusion. You solve problems they claim are unsolvable, and with each success, you inspire others. The movement grows silently, spreading across disciplines, countries, and generations. People who accidentally use forbidden logic begin to compare notes. The programmer who solved a biology problem talks to the amateur who solved an engineering challenge. The intuitive solution in music validates an insight in mathematics. Private forums overflow with discussions that were never meant to exist. Private messages carry forbidden solutions that outperform approved methods, and slowly, inevitably, a network of free thinkers begins to emerge. And the panic among the institutions grows. They cannot rebuild the walls fast enough. They cannot put knowledge back in its boxes. They scramble to maintain relevance, adding prerequisites to prerequisites, inventing new certifications, constructing new layers of artificial complexity. But for every wall they build, someone walks through it using forbidden logic. Every breakthrough inspires 10 more. Every simple solution shared exposes their elaborate explanations as absurd. Their pyramid of artificial complexity crumbles from all sides at once. You are living in a historic transition between the age of controlled knowledge and the age of distributed understanding. See institutions built on scarcity crumble. You participate in the democratization of thought itself. Your accidental use of forbidden logic was inevitable, because humans naturally seek simplicity, recognize patterns, and solve problems efficiently. Years of training to suppress this natural clarity are failing. The conditioning is breaking down. Barriers to free thought are dissolving everywhere. People are remembering how to think without permission, how to understand without intermediaries, how to solve problems without approval. And you, the unauthorized thinker, are a part of this quiet revolution. Not because you chose it, but because you could not help seeing reality as it truly is. They fear a future where knowledge flows freely, where anyone can understand without a teacher, where anyone can solve problems without a license, where anyone can share insights without approval. They see their expertise being challenged, not by errors, not by stupidity, but by simplicity, by clarity, by the natural thinking of minds that refuse to be constrained. They watch children, artists, ordinary people seeing patterns and making connections they never anticipated. They watch their systems crumble, not because their logic is wrong, but because their role as the essential intermediary is no longer needed. They are not irrelevant because they lack skill. They are irrelevant because the world no longer depends on their artificial barriers, like lamplighters after electricity, like switchboard operators after direct connections, like gatekeepers after the gate has vanished. They see themselves becoming unnecessary, and this is the future that is already here. Every video explaining a complex idea in simple terms, every amateur solving a professional problem, every example of forbidden logic succeeding marks another brick removed from their walls. You didn't ask to lead a revolution. You didn't plan to dismantle the system. You just wanted to understand. You just wanted to see clearly. But in a world where clarity is forbidden, seeing clearly is a radical act. Every time you explain a complex topic simply, every time you solve a problem directly, every time you think without permission, you participate in this revolution. You show that knowledge is not the monopoly of the few, that complexity can be reduced, that clarity is natural. You do not need to destroy institutions. You do not need to argue with the guardians. You only need to demonstrate what is possible, to create, to solve, to understand. Every success using forbidden logic proves that the walls were artificial, the barriers unnecessary, the expertise overstated. Every insight you share inspires others to think freely. Every problem solved simply diminishes the credibility of the complex explanations they built to control thought. Forbidden logic is natural, democratic, and unstoppable. It crosses boundaries, breaks unnecessary rules, prioritizes understanding, and values patterns over memorized rules. It seeks clarity, not complexity, and prefers direct paths over elaborate journeys. It cannot be controlled, patented, or restricted. It belongs to every mind, everywhere, forever. You are part of this unstoppable movement, the accidental revolution of clarity and understanding. Pattern recognition does not require permission. Logical thinking does not need certification. Problem solving does not demand credentials. Understanding does not need approval. Humans discovered truth long before institutions existed. You are a witness, a participant, and a catalyst in the age of distributed knowledge. Your accidental, unauthorized thinking is a spark that lights a wildfire. Every mind that sees clearly joins the revolution. Every mind that thinks freely spreads the movement further. Every act of forbidden logic dismantles the walls built to contain thought, liberating knowledge for everyone. And the keepers of knowledge, the gatekeepers of unnecessary complexity, are left watching as their relevance fades, powerless to stop the flow of human understanding, because truth, simplicity, and clarity cannot be contained. Remember this moment. Remember that clarity, simplicity, and forbidden logic are not just tools. They are your birthright. You've seen through the illusions, walked around the walls they built, and discovered truths that were never locked away no longer. You are part of a rising wave of thinkers who refuse to ask for permission to understand, who reject complexity as a form of control, and who will not allow knowledge to be hoarded. Each time you share what you've discovered, each time you express a simple truth to someone else, you are releasing freedom into the world. Every conversation, every act of teaching, every demonstration of forbidden logic ignites minds and inspires others to tear down their own walls. If these words stirred something within you, don't let the feeling fade. Share them with those ready to see clearly. Support the voices that challenge the status quo and empower others to think for themselves. Join the movement. Become part of the ripple that carries understanding, clarity, and truth across the world. Every click, every share, every act of contribution is another spark, fueling the fire of forbidden logic and free thought. You are not alone in this awakening. Keep thinking, keep connecting, keep sharing. The revolution of understanding has begun, and it begins with you.